There's only one Zlatan.
Are you sure?
Yeah. You know Zlatan?
By now, I assume we're all familiar with the larger-than-life personality that is Zlatan Ibrahimović. The Lion is one of the very few people in the world, regardless of their industry or profession, that talks an insane amount of smack and absolutely backs it up almost every time. And one of the craziest things about him is that he's been going strong for more than 2 decades. An astounding fact that was brought to my attention a couple of months ago was that since turning 30 years old, Ibrahimović has scored more goals than he did before reaching that landmark, scoring 204 goals before hitting 30 and 298 and counting thereafter. What? You mean to tell me that this man has been more productive after passing his supposed physical prime than when he was in it? I don't need sleep. I need answers. So that got me thinking. It's been some time since the big man was in his quote-unquote youth, and we, and by we I mean me, could probably do with a bit of a refresher. So with that being said, how good was Zlatan Ibrahimović before turning 30? Yo, what's up guys? I hope you're all doing well. Off the bat, thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate you more than you know. We've got a special one coming up today. As always, if you like what you see, please feel free to very lightly tap that like button as it helps the channel out massively. But of course, no pressure. Okay, let's jump right in. David Lagercrantz, the man who helped co-write Ibra's book, I Am Zlatan, once stated that the best word to describe him as was complex. In another instance, Lagercrantz once recalled a time when Zlatan asked him whether he believed in God or not. In typical Zlatan fashion, when Lagercrantz replied that he was not very religious, he replied with, well, then you don't believe in Zlatan either, because God sent me to Rosengård to play football. Rosengård, of course, being a district in Malmö, Sweden, where Zlatan grew up. Despite the immense persona that the man has built for himself, he was not always like this. To understand Zlatan's insatiable will to win and the source of his strength, we have to time travel back to where it all began. Let's go all the way back to 1981. Born as the son of 2 immigrants, his father was of Muslim Bosnian descent, with his mother being a Catholic Croatian. To say that this man's childhood was tumultuous would be an understatement. His parents split when he was 2. His mother cleaned offices to support him and his 4 other siblings in their cramped apartment. One of his sisters reportedly had a drug addiction from a young age, and his mother was often getting in trouble with child services and was even once arrested for possession of stolen goods. He often went hungry, and on top of that, his father was an alcoholic and his drinking only increased as the Yugoslav war escalated in his native Bosnia. Starting his playing days at 6 years of age and eventually working his way into the Malmö youth side by 15 years old, he experienced even more adversity on his way up the ranks. Due to his foreign name and ancestry, he was subjected to racism by his Swedish-born teammates and even coaches. In fact, despite being the man that he eventually became, this is an issue that is still prevalent to this day. As recently as 2018, he told Canal Plus, "What does the Swedish media do? Do they defend me or do they jump on and attack me? They still attack me because they cannot accept that I am Ibrahimović. This exists, I am 100% sure, because I'm not Anderson or Svensson. If I would be that, trust me, they would defend me even if I would rob a bank." Despite all of this, the young boy emerged as an unreal talent. The harsh background he was subjected to taught him that he had to be tough if he wanted to achieve anything in life, tough in both mind and body. Another thing we have to understand about a guy like Ibra is that, being a strong personality himself, inevitably, he tends to respond best to other strong personalities. Take note of that for later. So at this point in the story, I'm sure we all get the idea. The guy had it rough. Most men would crumble under all these obstacles, but a wise man once said,
"Lions, they don't compare themselves with humans."
After spending 3 years in the youth ranks at Malmö, it was eventually time for him to make his move to the senior team, making his debut in 1999. But before we go any further, you may be asking, why is that? How did this man make the leap? You might even be asking, how good was he really? Well, at this point in his development at least, and beyond that, he was phenomenal. Deployed primarily as an attacker, he was not gifted with exceptional pace, but realistically, that was amongst his only shortcomings. For a man standing at 6'4", his ball control and technique was out of this world. Actually, never mind, for a man of any size, his abilities were stellar. His ball striking technique, positioning, and vision were all fantastic. However, at an early age, his strength and aerial prowess wasn't quite there just yet. And finally, amongst his traits, perhaps his most unique was his agility and flexibility. This was helped in large part by the black belt in Taekwondo that he received at 17 years of age. Combine all of these traits and what you had was a man that was capable of finding the back of the net in several spectacular and unique ways. After spending 3 seasons at Malmö, our man understandably gained international recognition, which only makes sense as he scored 18 goals in 47 appearances in all competitions as a teenager. Amongst the clubs that were vying for his signature were English giants, at the time at least, Arsenal. Reportedly, Arsene Wenger was keen to give Ibra a trial to suss him out, but little did he know, Zlatan does not do auditions. A Roma side coached by Fabio Capello at the time were interested too, however, Capello would have to wait his turn. And so, in July of 2001, he was off to Ajax for £7.5 million, a record transfer fee for the Dutch giants at the time. Initially, life in Amsterdam wasn't all that great though. Off the bat, he caught a bad rap for reckless driving during his time in Sweden, and the Ajax coach, Jacobus Adriaanse, didn't rate him all that highly, often leaving him on the bench. And when Ajax's form in the league took a dip around the midway point of his debut season, this led to fans turning on their record transfer. However, all that changed when Ronald Koeman stepped in midway through the season. Zlatan received significantly more game time and went on to help Ajax to their 28th Eredivisie title in his first season with the club and coupled that with a KNVB Cup. He may have only scored 6 goals in 24 appearances in the league, but this was only the beginning. The remainder of his time with Ajax was met with even more success, but in typical Zlatan fashion, success and controversy often go hand in hand. He went on to score a further 39 goals, making 9 assists in 77 appearances in all competitions over the next 2 seasons, and claimed yet another Eredivisie title with Ajax in 2004. However, during this period with Ajax, he also got into a spat with Mido that saw scissors being thrown across the dressing room, and he was also accused of intentionally injuring Rafael van der Vaart in an international friendly between Sweden and the Netherlands. Van der Vaart, who was of course his Ajax teammate. He also finished in 14th place in the 2004 Ballon d'Or rankings as a 22-year-old. As you can see, with Zlatan, you take the good with the bad, but it just so happens that the good is so good. I say that because it was at this point in his career that he linked up with the now infamous Mino Raiola, super agent extraordinaire. What's his superpower, you ask? Well, generally rubbing clubs the wrong way, and making sure his clients get the absolute best contracts possible. Let's just say there's a reason he represents so many elite players. And not long after they linked up, Zlatan moved over to Juventus for £14 million, only 3 games into the 2004-05 season of Serie A. And, with a mic drop of all mic drops, this was his final goal for Ajax. Up until this point, he was doing pretty well, but this is where he kicked into a whole new gear. I pointed out earlier that Zlatan responded best to strong personalities and that he was not as strong on the ball or in the air as he really should have been given his size. I also mentioned that Fabio Capello would have to wait his turn to coach Ibra. Now managing Juventus, his time had come. Capello went straight to work on our man, helping him improve his overall technique and strength. In Capello's own words, Ibrahimović loved making assists more than scoring goals. I wanted him to become more ruthless in front of goal and improve his finishing. And Capello wasn't all that nice about it either. In fact, he is famous for being ruthless in his expectations of all of his players, often seen screaming commands at them. But this is something that Ibrahimović needed, and certainly appreciated. When speaking on Capello's coaching style, Ibrahimović once said, "I like that. I like direct. I don't want someone saying, 'Wow, you're the best. What an amazing player you are.' I don't need to hear things I already know. I need someone who puts fire on my skin." And judging by the 16 goals and 7 assists that he racked up in his first season in Turin, his best season from a numbers perspective, the change in managers and scenery was doing him wonders. Add a Scudetto, a Serie A Best Foreign Player of the Year award, and an 8th place Ballon d'Or finish to the mix, and it's easy to understand the hype around this guy in retrospect. Although his second season at Juve wasn't all that great, they still scooped up the top spot in Serie A again, and were likely on their way to a third. Sounds pretty good, right? Wrong. Turns out Juventus and a few other Italian giants were implicated in a match-fixing scandal whereby favourable referees were being selected for matches. This all came out through leaked phone conversations, with the Italian Football Federation quick to punish all those involved. Juventus were stripped of their last 2 titles and relegated to Serie B. And, well, do you really think Zlatan was ever going to play anything but top-flight football? Yeah, didn't think so. And so, he was off to Inter Milan for £21 million. Despite the circumstances that accelerated the transfer, this was a great move for a few reasons. Firstly, he claims to have supported them as a child. which does make sense, seeing as he idolized Ronaldo Nazario growing up. And secondly, seeing as Juve had been relegated and stripped of the title, the Nerazzurri were effectively the reigning Serie A champions. Now an Inter player, it was more or less business as usual for him, scoring on his league debut with the club. Rather unsurprisingly, 3 Scudettos in a row followed for him and Inter. He even reached a rather surprising milestone in the 2008-09 season of Serie A. For the very first time in his entire career, at 27 years of age, he scored more than 20 goals in the league in a single season, scoring 25 and assisting 7 in 35 appearances. I'm surely not the only one that's a bit taken aback by that, right? Given his outrageous scoring record today, that's a bit surprising. In any case, this extra push was no doubt boosted by the introduction of the special one, Jose Mourinho, at the start of the season. One of the best man managers in football history and a man that Ibrahimović states that he could more or less die for. A sentiment that very many players echo. Well, very many players not named Luke Shaw. After spending 3 seasons with Inter, it was time to make the big move. So we all thought. In 2009, he made the switch to the reigning European champions, Barcelona, for £57 million, no doubt in search of the Champions League trophy that had eluded him for so long. I guess it's important to note that Pep Guardiola and Samuel Eto'o's fractured relationship was one of the main reasons that Barca was seeking a striker. In the end, Ibra went one way to Barcelona and Eto'o went the other way to Inter. Looking back, this may have been an indication of things to come. Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, and now Zlatan. The best of the best. This was surely a recipe for success, right? Initially, yes. He had a flying start to life at Camp Nou. In fact, he scored 5 goals in his first 5 matches in the league, something that had never been done by any Barca player up to that point. However, shortly after that, things took a bit of a turn. Firstly, Messi moved into the center as a false 9, changing the system from a 4-3-3 to a 4-5-1. Therefore, Ibra was extremely restricted in his movements and the space that he was allowed to occupy. Secondly, Barca were knocked out of the Champions League in the semi-finals by the eventual winners, rather ironically, Inter Milan. And thirdly, Pep Guardiola and Zlatan simply did not see eye to eye. He even told Guardiola to go to hell after Barca fell victim to a Mourinho masterclass in the CL semi-final. Safe to say that that relationship wasn't a very strong one. Despite scoring a more than impressive 16 goals in the league, making 8 assists and winning La Liga, this season was a rather forgettable one for our man. And so, Barca decided that 3rd time's the charm and went for a 3rd striker in as many years, signing David Villa before the 2009-10 season was even over. Ibra knew it was time to go, but not before stating to the club's president that he wanted to join Real Madrid in July of 2010. As you can imagine, that would never have been allowed to go down. Although we can only assume that this was a bluff to lower his selling price. I say this because him and Raiola were reportedly already negotiating terms with AC Milan, so whether he wanted to join Madrid or not is inconclusive. This is especially considering the fact that Milan got him on a 1-season loan with a £21 million option to buy at the end of his loan spell. Bear in mind that Barca paid almost triple that for the Swede only 1 year prior. So now, at 29 years of age, Zlatan entered AC Milan. Rivals of the team he supported as a kid, remember? Now back in an environment where he was allowed to do what he does best, we already know what happened next. Alongside Robinho and Alexandro Pato, the Rossoneri ran rampant. Each player in this attacking trio scored 14 goals apiece, adding yet another Scudetto to Ibra's trophy case. The very next season, his move to Milan was made permanent, and he finally turned 30 years old. So, just in case you need a recap of how much of a winner this man is, between the ages of 22 and 29, Ibrahimović won a league title every single season. Of course, there was a bit of a blip between 2004 and 2006, but we don't talk about that. For any player, these accolades would be insane. But considering the fact that this was done across 3 top-flight leagues in 3 different countries makes this achievement all the more remarkable. As the title of this video suggests, this is where our story ends for today. As we all know, what he's done since hitting the 3-decade mark is nothing short of remarkable. At the time of posting this video, the big Swede is about to go into the 2021-22 season of Serie A and will be turning 40 years old in October. The longevity of this man's career is unreal. I figured that, seeing as his story is still very much ongoing, Zlatan in his 30s deserves its own video for another day. But let's see where his career goes from here. On that note, there we have it. How do you guys feel about Zlatan Ibrahimović before turning 30? Where do you think he played his best football? Please feel free to leave it all in the comments below. Anyway, that's all from me today. Wishing you all a lovely day ahead. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.